Okay, 5 minutes post today. The question is, what is one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life? Okay, so I have an answer to that. And actually, there were a few things that came up for me, good decisions that I've made in my life. Actually, I think I've made quite a lot of good decisions in my life. Yeah, I've made some pretty bad decisions. I could talk about those, but if I look in the past, anyways, leading up to now, there have also been an equal amount of like really good decisions that I've made for myself and decisions I've made that I've been really proud of, that were difficult, that have worked out to be beneficial for me in many ways. So, I think that's an interesting question for me to ask myself because quite a lot of good decisions come up that I could talk about, but obviously there's one there's one main one. Got to keep a ear on the timer of my oven because today I'm baking bread. I've been experimenting with cooking sourdough as middle-aged men do. And it's been also like, this is like interesting up and down journey, as I suppose it is for everybody that gets into like sourdough bread. And the best thing that I did recently with my sourdough is that I got myself a Dutch oven, which was recommended online. The Dutch oven is a little like ceramic pot thing because I don't have a standard big oven that a lot of like American houses have. I just have a little toaster oven and it doesn't get super, super hot. It says it goes up to like 250 Celsius, but there's a lot of heat loss from the toaster oven. So I think heat's an issue. So I found out online that you can use a Dutch oven, which helps capture moisture and humidity and will give a better loaf. And it turns out that it's totally true because my sourdough loaves have been coming out, at least the outside of the loaf looks way more like a sourdough that you'd see in a photo than they were before. The inside of my bread, I'm still trying to figure out how to get it that like those big open bubbles with spaces and that certain kind of sourdough texture that I only seem to be able to get from a restaurant or a bakery. I don't know what creates that. I've been trying different things. I've had some that are getting there, but nothing that really like achieves that. And it could be a bunch of things that are completely out of my control, like the heat and the humidity of Taiwan, stuff like that, ingredients I'm using, and just mainly the fact that I barely know what I'm doing. So, whatever, it's fun, and I keep going. I'm cooking bread today, and so far the dough that I made, the dough I made and shaped, looks really amazing, like top quality. So, I'm looking forward to see how it comes out. I'm heating up my Dutch oven now so I can bake that loaf. But yeah, the most important the most important decision, did I say important or best? One of the best decisions that I think I ever made so far was to sell all my shit and go travel for a year. That was for me 2009. I had already been, working. At that time, I was living in St. Joseph, Michigan, near Benton Harbor, kind of like 2 hours outside of Chicago on the Michigan side. I worked for ARS, an advertising agency that all of our clients were like Whirlpool Corporation mostly. And I just decided that I wanted to go travel and see the world. I moved around a lot growing up, so I've been around the US a lot, but had never really been outside of America much as an adult. And so I had a lot of curiosities about the world and seeing more than where I was. And I remember feeling just really eager to discover new things and see something beyond what I had been experiencing for quite a lot of time in my adult life. So I did that. I'm very grateful that when I brought it up to friends, I had a friend who basically offered to let me stay in his house and not pay rent for like half a year or something like that. And I was able to save up just a ton of money from rent and on bills and things like that. And that's really one of the main things that made it possible for me. And just also because my friends at that time supported the idea and encouraged me to do it. That was nice. I didn't have a lot of people around me telling me that it was a bad idea or I shouldn't do it, which I think helps a lot, when you're unsure, because, I definitely had a lot of, other worries about it, like I had to quit my job. That was 2009 when a lot of people were losing their jobs and I had a good job and I was, had a secure position. I had a lot going on. So, it seemed like there was a lot I could lose from this new adventure, but I could feel it really strong in me, this desire to do something just like really crazy, and so I did it, and I sold all my shit, even sold my car, and I remember people like my dad were like, "Whoa, like what are you doing? You're gonna sell your car? Like." That seems like a lot, and it was a lot, but I wasn't really afraid at that time. Surprisingly, there are so many things in my life now that I get anxious about and stressed, and I have fear about that are so much smaller, and I don't remember feeling like a lot of anxiety about that. It just felt like I knew that's what I wanted to do, and so I did that, and then I left, the States, and I traveled for a year. I spent 6 months in India, which was just mind blowing, and it just had like a radical impact on me, on my worldview, on my perspective of it. It plunged me into a lot of self introspection, and just completely rearranged the way I thought about a lot of things, including myself. And yeah, 6 months in India and then 6 months traveling, Southeast Asia and China. And it was just, it was amazing. It was probably one of the best experiences that I've ever had in my life. I've never I haven't had that level of like mind blowing, like life changing experience since. And that now, 2009 to 2010, shit, that's like more than 15 years ago. But it was amazing, and it was the best thing for me to do at that time. And I definitely, anybody who I think that I know that's gone and traveled for a length of time, even if it's just like 1 or 2 months, has a very similar story that it ends up being the best thing that they've ever done. Since I've moved to Taiwan and I've lived here, I've met quite a lot of people that have done something similar. And nowadays, with influencers and like travel and stuff, I mean, it's just like a lot of people do this kind of thing, but I think that's because a lot more people see how amazing it can be and how beneficial, for so many things it can be to just like, and not only, I think one of the things that I'm really happy that I did was not just go for 1 month, not just go for a vacation, but take like this whole like year, because I remember, like the first few months, I mean, it took me 2 or 3 months to really settle in to the idea that I was just completely free to relax and explore the world. It's amazing how long that takes. So, and then after you do something like that, after traveling for a year, and most people that have done that also then realize how almost insignificant and nothing can happen just from like a 2 week vacation. 2 week vacation's awesome. I haven't had a 2 week vacation actually in years. Like actual holiday vacation. That's fun. So ironic that I'm saying that, and I haven't actually taken any vacations in years, but 2 weeks is not enough time to really settle into adventure and exploration. But a year is, and a year was actually long enough for me to get really tired of it and be finished of it because, all right, well, my 5 minutes is turning into 15 minutes, but it's interesting. I'm glad I'm doing this question because it's fun for me to talk about. But, I remember when I started traveling and I was in India and I met a French traveler there who told me she had been traveling for 8 months. And I remember being blown away by that. Like, wow, like 8 months, that's so long. Because I was on maybe my second month. And that just felt, compared to my 2 months, like forever. And I remember asking her, like, wow, how is it, like 8 months? And she was like, I'm done. Like, I want to go home. And I'm like, I can't even imagine that either because I just started. That I don't want to go home. I want to go and, do this forever. But I do remember at about 8 months, that same feeling creeping in because of, by that time, like you get really tired of a lot of things. Like, you're tired of going to museums. You're tired of going to like monuments and, sightseeing things. And, you've read a bunch of books. You've been to a lot of cafe and you start kind of like losing interest in the things that initially were like really fun. But I think that's also one of the best things that happens from a really long travel is that you're like a sponge and you absorb it all. And that's what I needed. And then, at the end you're like, I'm good, and I don't, I've had week-long vacations and it's never like, oh, I'm good, I'm ready to go home. You're like, oh, this sucks, like I want more and there isn't more. So that's one of the best decisions I've ever made, go travel for a year. And I think it was a good decision that I waited until after I had some working experience and started my career because it was much easier for me after my year to get back into work and, find work, go back into that life. I already had experience. I already had a resume. And so I think that helped a lot that happened. So yeah, there we go. There's my 5 minutes. What's today? Happy Wednesday.